recording this to the cloud. Hey, how is life here in lovely week 10 of this class? As you can see, this is a unique week. Because number one, I am not going to present a thing. Well, I will comment on everybody's section of this course. Number two, this week idea I've never tried before. So we're in for a unique experience. Number three, this week was not promised in the original syllabus. The topics, none of them were promised because this is the alternative syllabus week. So this is a bonus. This is like getting double your money's worth for your tuition in this class. You know, so if anything, you can pull one or two or three ideas from this week. Even kitty cat talks to each other. Hey, kitty cat. Even the cats and dogs are showing up for this week. It's so darn important. I'm sure Kim will bring a couple cows and pigs and so forth from her farm. They want to listen in, like farm animals. What was that book? What was that book when we were growing up? Animal Farm or something like that, right? I was a little kid when I read that. So there's a lot of uniqueness in this particular week. I don't know what number I'm on, but I'll say number 4. You are presenting. So this is an example of students taking control of the course, a way in which to enable students to present and give people ownership and identity and utilize learner-centered principles within your class structure. What number are we on, Christian? Number 5?
I think.
Number 5. This is the very first time I have seen guys, I must say they're all guys, skateboarding in front of the building in which I'm going to talk. There's a whole bunch of skateboarders right in the front here. Christian, you should have come down. They're having a good old time. They're trying to impress the girls who are walking by. So they're skateboarding, they're going down and they're trying to get the girls to talk to them. And they're, oh, she talked to you. Oh, yeah. It's hilarious. So, yeah, they're pretty impressive, actually. It's a beautiful night. At number 6, this is like the equinox. This is like the thing. This is March 21st. This is springtime, right? And then lo and behold, it is actually the loveliest day in Bloomington. It's been at least 6, it was 70 degrees and just blue skies, a little white puffs every once in a while up in the air. And one of my doctoral students defended today her EDD and passed with revisions. And so we celebrated at Lenny's this afternoon. So there's a lot of uniqueness in the air here tonight. It's also coming back from spring break. There are a couple things I didn't mention. Christian, what didn't I mention?
That the alternative syllabus fits really nicely into self-directed online learning.
I said that. Come up with something I didn't say, Christian. There's some real important stuff I didn't say. You should know.
I probably do know.
Yeah. Anybody know?
Going first?
Anybody know what's really important about tonight? About today?
We're getting more money for our tuition dollars. Like we're getting more time for our tuition dollars.
I said that already. I said that. Something I didn't say.
I know
it's your
something
birthday.
Oh.
What's that?
Sorry, Rebecca. I was it's your birthday.
Is it?
Not my birthday.
Oh,
is it Rebecca's birthday?
No, but I was going to say something local to me is that it's the peak of cherry blossoms. So they all peaked today.
Well, that would be a good one. That's number 6 or 7. Okay, we'll make it number 7. What's that, Kim? You're muted.
It's the first full day of spring.
There we go. It's an equinox. That's number 8. Can we get to 10 here tonight?
I've got all my mulch spread.
That's number 9. We'll give Christian number 9. I'll give you number 10 now, and I'll look up. Christian.
Day 731. Pandemic pondering. Did you get your calendar printed? Remember, we can't hear you unless you speak into the
Say on the back.
Pandemic
March
madness?
21st,
No.
2020 to March 21st, 2022.
Oh.
This is the 2-year mark. Today was today was a day.
That was awesome echo.
Feedback from Shishi to the side there.
It was perfectly planned.
Perfectly all synchronous and everything. So my 2-year mark of running every day in a row was hit this morning, and we just lost. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Oh, she's trying
So
to
are you
make.
done running now?
So I did. I gotta go run again. No, I did Lake Griffey today, and yesterday in San Antonio. Yesterday San Antonio and a beautiful park. I did the trail called Dancing with Trees, and the day before the Twisted Trail all along the Blue Line. I did the Blue Line. McAllister Park in San Antonio is a huge, lovely park. So I've been. It was great. I was still running at 20 minutes to 1 today in Griffey Lake, and I had to get to dissertation defense at 1. And I made it. I was at the far reaches. I was in the middle of Lake Griffey on a hillside in the looking down to the dam. If you've been to Lake Griffey, the dam, and I yelled out, 2 years in a row of running. I don't know if anyone heard me on the dam side, but I yelled and screamed. So it's been a crazy, fun day. I will say after I went to Lenny's this afternoon and had a little lunch and had a celebratory drink, I fell asleep. So I did take a nap. So we have an interesting lineup for tonight. We have Sarah, who's going to start us off. I have to leave at 7:30, so we need to get going. Sarah, what we're going to do is have people talk they can have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maximum 20 minutes to do whatever they want to do in terms of their week. And so this is in the alternative syllabus, and Sarah will tell us what her week was. It's not listed in the agenda. We're making a surprise, and she'll try and entice you into the week and find out information. We'll have 4 presenters and then a breakout room activity to talk about what they have said and to talk about the alternative syllabus. And if some of the people don't want to present, we're going to have a second breakout. We'll explore the most interesting article in the alternative syllabus. So I will shut up here and let Sarah take over. Where did you go, Sarah? I lost you. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Your cat and you are, what's your cat's name?
That one was Fitz.
You have more than one.
Yes.
Okay.
There's 3 black cats. There's Fitz and Simmons, and we just call them Fitzsimmons from Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I thought you said the fix, but it's fix.
Fit. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So
and then, third one's Deke.
Deeks, all great names. All great names. So Sarah, you can do whatever you want for the next 15 minutes. I know you have to leave at 7:30-ish. You might be able to stay a few minutes longer. But why don't you tell us about your week and why should people get interested in it? Would you like to have an activity around it or present? Whatever you'd like to do. I will mute my mic now.
Okay. I mostly just decided to kind of go over my reasoning for why I wanted to cover what I covered in my thing. So I'll share my screen here. If it lets me. Sometimes it does weird things. Okay, there we go. It's the Zoom system does not like my Safari, so I have to switch browsers, and then I have all kinds of weird issues. Okay. So for my week, I decided to talk about adult ed and open education. And I'm specifically interested in open education because I think could be a really interesting way to bring good education to more of my students. A lot of my students don't have a lot of funds. Our programs don't have a lot of funds traditionally. And we're always buying all of these resources, like book sets and access to learning programs. And I just want to make that better. And I've always been trying to do that. And I actually had a discussion with David Wiley about this. And he brought up a really good point that we're going to have to put some money into it in order to get really good quality materials and texts and have them updated and keep everything accessible. But that, you know, a little bit of funding could go a long way in this. We kind of need that impetus to get it going. And I will admit that I am one of those people that I have ripped up books and scanned them all in into PDFs to give to the other teachers, to give to my students if needed, because I hate charging for books. And being a book reader, that is, you know, I'm constantly spending money on books, and it'd be nice if they were all free, other than, you know, I'm in a small town, our library does not have much. And my other reasoning was that a lot of the resources that for open education that I've seen are aimed at K-12 or the higher education. So I saw kind of a gap in adult education, which when I'm talking about adult education, it's specifically the GED, high school equivalency type programs. There's also some training, like job training skills programs, but we're definitely a very unique form of education that I found. I found adult ed by chance and turned out that that was exactly where I was supposed to be in education. I kind of tried all the other levels before that. And our students are unique. No two are alike. They've all got different barriers that they're trying to face. They all have different backgrounds. And so it's this adult education the open education with adult education seems like it would be a really interesting kind of convergence of skills and resources. And I just am so excited about it in general. So for the week, I decided to focus on kind of what was being covered in the Monster Syllabus. So I picked the week where they were talking about open education. I wanted there to be a little bit of a parallel to the other side of class. And a lot of my reasoning was that many of the articles that we see, they're more theoretical. Sorry, there's Fitz again. And so even in the special edition that we read of the journal, it was a lot of good ideas of what we could use in our classrooms, but it wasn't ways that we could necessarily implement things right away. And I always like actionable things. I like resources. For example, Dr. Bonk knows this. In the tidbits assignment, most of my favorite ones were all lists of resources. Where can we go to get the things that we're looking for? What are good ideas like with the VR? Show me all the apps that have cool VR, things like that. And so I was focusing on the practical side, the how-to of open education within adult education. And so what I found is that if you're interested in this, links always is a good place to go for resources. And they also have some really good courses, essentially, self-paced courses of how to get started bringing open education into your adult education classroom. And they had specifics for math and for science, which I'm also a science teacher, so that always interests me. And then OpenStax, I think most of us have heard of OpenStax at this point now, thanks to the class, just for texts and materials and resources. And also David Wiley's, the Lumen Learning has some, I'm having like a complete moment here. I know it's with an L, but they've got some interesting, it's not free necessarily, but they have some interesting courses to look at. I haven't looked entirely at that yet. That's on my list of the ones that I'm going to, but from what I saw, it looked like they had some really interesting courses that could be used for adult ed and not just for K-12 or higher ed. So just thank you for my little spiel. Then I wanted to open it up for any questions. I'm going to stop. There we go. Stop sharing. For any questions that anyone had about the open ed and specifically adult ed, how it could work within adult ed.
Anyone have a question?
No. It's not terribly.
I have a comment and a question perhaps. So this is week 6 reminder. So if you want to go back through the alternative syllabus, I sent it to you as a reminder in your email. I want to remind you that David Wiley is the president of AECT now. In his past, he was at Utah State and Brigham Young University, BYU, in the state of Utah. He helped create the virtual high school of Utah. He helped create a company that was doing, it was called Flat World Knowledge, a bunch of publishers who was trying to create wiki-based textbooks. He's basically a serial entrepreneur, and he helped create open courseware that MIT uses to put their courses up on the web. They had an open courseware project funded by the Hewlett Foundation. So he's had huge amounts of influence within the field, of course, and a fair bit of money. And as he mentioned, you do need some money to keep these resources up and have them be sustainable and to have them be maintainable and to enable the sharing of them. And so he is not, there are pure open education people who don't believe in corporate involvement at all. It's just free will of humanity sharing with one another. And basically, you know, they have a gripe with maybe capitalism. I don't know. And he's not in that camp, but he helped found, if not the only founder of the Open Education Conference, of which I went right before the pandemic, two years ago, November 2019. A couple of former students and I went to the conference and presented. It's a great conference, but it's kind of unknown how it's going to evolve post-pandemic. And at the conference, he basically made an announcement. It would be the last such conference of open ed. And there'll be 2 groups that will splinter out and basically offer 2 conferences in open education here in the US. As you remember from a few weeks ago, when I lectured on open education, there is a global open ed conference that's held typically in Europe. And there is an Open Education Week, which was the first week of March, I believe, or the second week of March. So there are ways to get involved in open education by joining the Open Ed Week and participating in the presentations. I think they're free. At least some of them are. There's an organization out of Europe called Eden, which is a distance learning network within Europe that is heavily involved in open education as well. So there are a couple of things that relate to Sarah's week in this area of open education, in particular focused on adult learning. Now, one thing about having an alternative syllabus is you enable people to fill in the gaps. So what they see are the gaps. And in this case, there might be a perception of too much of a K-12 focus and not enough adult ed or corporate training and so forth. And so Gov might be interested in corporate training being from the business school. And the same with Sarah being an adult ed major, I assume, Sarah. And so this is
minor,
you're minoring. This is a way to enable those that are minoring or majoring in adult ed or have an interest in adult ed to go into a little more depth than that they normally would see in this class and to have some takeaways. So just an advantage there. If you want to know more about David Wiley, my podcast, Silver Lining for Learning, interviewed him about 9 months ago. And so if you go to Silver Lining for Learning and type in David Wiley, you can get basically his life history we went through in an hour and in terms of the open education movement. But he's done many interviews, not just the one that we did with him. I'm sure you could find plenty of videos on him talking about the open ed movement. In my 2015 MOOCs book, he has the opening chapter talking about some of the flaws in the MOOCs movement and some of the dilemmas that we now face. David's, I think he's not just in the open ed movement. He's been in other areas, but in particular, if he is in the open ed movement, it's the open textbook area that he's done the most research with John Hilton III, I believe, who's a religion professor at BYU. And the two of them have teamed up and done a couple of studies, huge studies in community colleges and other things that were in your articles, in your readings a few weeks ago, not that long ago. You may remember running into those things. David helped me when I did the book, The World is Open. He was one of the first people I interviewed, and I include him in there. And also, if you read the special issue of ETR&D, the opening article is from myself and David Wiley. So you might have seen his name previously. That's in the preface to the special issue that we did. That was David and I, and he talks about having to address problems and not just get interested in some fancy technologies or the new thing, the new trends, but think about problems that you want to solve. That part of the article is the most cited and most people talk about the most. I cannot claim credit for that piece. That was something David inserted and I added too. So, you know, I'm glad that he put that in there, and Tom Rees put the last article in that special issue, and that reiterated those points and added much more depth to that. There's a couple other things I want to say about David. Just he's a good personal friend. He moved back to his home state of West Virginia, where I used to teach, about a year or two ago from living in Utah. But David quit his job as a faculty member with tenure to explore other routes and other avenues in his career, which is not a normal thing to do. Oh, when the first MOOC was offered, David had experimented with giving his students certificates, not just his students, anyone who showed up, like this class, anyone who showed up in Zoom every week and just joined in, and I would give a certificate to. That's what David did the year before the first MOOC was offered. And he was featured in the Chronicle of Higher Education. It's a tidbit, if you've read it, about, and some of you say, oh, there's some old tidbits in there. Well, that's a classic tidbit I included in there because it led to the MOOCs movement. There are some reasons why. There's an article from 2007 or 2008, in particular, that article from David Wiley and Charles Vest's announcement in 2001 that all education should be free. Those are seminal pieces that are in the tidbits. There's a lot of little pieces in there I couldn't come to delete. And I think if someone was to create a booklet or a online, I guess what we used to call compiled readings. My first book in 1987 or 88, I guess, is compilation of articles on critical thinking for teachers. And if I was to do a compilation of articles on the open ed movement, that would be in there. That would definitely be in there. Charles Vest's announcement in 2001 and David Wiley's experimentations with certificate in online environments. So he's been influential in many ways. Glad that Sarah was able to interview him. So I was really not shocked, but I was really delighted that he said yes to being interviewed. I mean, that's really cool, Sarah. That was probably one of the top 10 things for this class so far, was that David agreed to be interviewed. So, and so a couple last things. Fitz, Christian will make Fitz an honorary member of this class. He'll create some kind of motif or some kind of image of, he's probably screen captured Fitz in there a few times, and he'll make him as R678 honorary member. Maybe she's doing that over here now. She's, as you see, she's doing something. But I also want to point out there's a conference called PCF 10. I went to PCF 9 in Scotland 2 years ago. There's a conference in September in Calgary, Canada, the follow-up PCF 10, which is a Pan-Pacific Commonwealth Forum, something like that, to try and get people across the world to reflect on the open ed movement, and in particular people from the Open U in the UK. They led the last one, and then the Commonwealth of Learning, where Sanjaya Mishra is from, who presented to us a few weeks ago. So the Commonwealth of Learning in Vancouver, COL.org, and the Open U's out there all around the world, Open universities have this biannual typically event, PCF, it's called PCF this year, it's PCF 10. So you should check that out. I think proposals are due shortly. I think they extended through this month, but I could be wrong. And I'd love to go. So if you do put a proposal, stick my name on there so I can go, you know, I just kidding. So Sarah, you want to make a comment on my comments?
Yeah, I was going to add that what you're talking about with Europe, I did find that it seems that there's a much better infrastructure there for open education within adult education. And I was trying to focus on what we had here, again, going with that practical side. But yeah, they have a lot better setup, and it's more accepted, it seems there. I did find a lot of articles with Germany on open ed and adult ed.
So the opening of the Netherlands and the opening of Germany work hand in hand together. And my good friend and colleague, Theo Bastians, was working at both. And now he's the rector, or the rector magnificence or something like that, for the Open U in the Netherlands. The former rector, or person in charge of the Open U, had the foreword to my MOOCs book, my 2015, and had cancer at the time, or right after that, and passed away recently. So, so yeah, those are the two countries that typically get quite involved in open ed for adult-based learning. If you want to take a look at what's happening there. Anyone else want to comment on our go ahead, Christian.
Sarah, I was just curious if you had figured out some way that you were maybe going to integrate into your lessons the student created, or your higher ed, or not higher ed, but your adult ed learners into the creation or compilation of an OER.
I've been thinking about it. I'm not teaching at the moment, so I'm kind of waiting to see what kind of situation I end up with. There's a few, we have a literacy program in town, and then also a HSE program through the community college. So I'm waiting just to see, you know, they're going to be slightly different. One is a lot more informal, one's more formal. You know, it's going to depend on all that. But I definitely want to essentially have my students create their own class materials, and have them share that with the other classes. So it might be something, just knowing how adult ed works, it's probably going to be something that I'll have to get a little demonstration going, and then try and get that proof of concept, and then get the administrators behind it and go from there. My ultimate would be to just set up my own program, and I'm working on a few ideas. I don't know how practical they're going to be in the long run. I know I've talked about this a little bit before in some papers with Dr. Bonk about a makerspace as an adult ed, and that would be almost a personification of this open ed stuff, because I want to have the community involved, and they would be bringing in their skills, their tools, their knowledge, their expertise, sharing it with the students. The students are going to share theirs back, and we could create essentially our own library for skills and for knowledge, and be community based, and it would be geared specifically for this community.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful and hugely motivating too, because you're helping the community. You're also valuing the knowledge that they already have. And so it helps drive that community to continue building that knowledge database that you're creating, that they're creating.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
So I've noticed that we have 3 people with us who are presenting before we take our break, and 3 people with us after the break. Actually 4 with Christian and God together. There's a couple of people who aren't with us. They may join us. So it's a nice balance tonight. And I also want to mention a couple more things. That article that David Wiley wrote about getting certificates in his class was a controversial piece, because he didn't get permission from his administrators to do that. So he basically just did it on his own. Sometimes faculty members take risks. I mean, you got a certificate from BYU for taking my class, you know, and you gave it to him. No one had ever done that before, at least on record. At least he was featured in the Chronicle of Higher Education. So basically all the people who read the Chronicle of Higher Education found out about it, you know, simultaneously. And at the same time, that was like that around 2008. The same time I was getting these emails that George Siemens and Stephen Downs were doing the first MOOC. I mean, the MOOC thing was happening just right after that. So it was, I guess they called it the proto MOOC, the pre-MOOC, you know? So if you look up online, type in proto MOOC, there is an article that's kind of hard to find about the early year or the pre-year leading up to MOOCs. Sometimes I can find the article and sometimes I can't. It's kind of like one of those things hidden in the dark web, you know? And I want to also mention that AECT will be in Las Vegas, I guess November or October, and you can meet David Wiley. I'd be happy to have a session with all of you and him, maybe a breakfast or a chat over tea and coffee. If someone reminds me before AECT comes up a month ahead of time, I will write to him and have him, you know, a get together and just chat. If anyone would like to do that, we can do that. Any final comments before we go on to the next one with Charity? Was that interesting approach? Okay, let's try that again. So now we have Charity. And what week do you have, Charity?
I had week 8.
Week 8. So that's emerging technologies in foreign language learning. And there's articles, videos, websites, the whole 9 yards in here. It looks, it's a very interesting week because I explored some of these and I said, wow, you know, I would have never found that. And so Charity, you want to tell us what your background is that led to you selecting that particular topic and what you hope everyone will get from exploring week 8?
Sure. So I have always been interested in foreign languages. Studied French in high school, college, a little bit when I was getting my master's, continued to take some French classes. I was a French teacher. And then let's see, when I joined the military, my first job was actually as a Chinese linguist. So I didn't come with those language skills. The military trained me in those. I've done immersion training in both China and France. And then I just love languages, even learning a little bit of a variety of languages. I was stationed in Hawaii for a little bit. So the Hawaiian language, I think is just gorgeous. And it's also a little bit confusing because there's Hawaiian and there's Pidgin. But for tonight, what I wanted to do is, I was a French teacher, or I was a teacher in general, so I can't get over some old habits. So I decided to give a quiz. I'm going to try this. We'll see how it goes. How many of you have your phones on you? Do you have your cell phones nearby? Okay, pull out your cell phones. I'm going to try and share my screen. And then what it is it's going to be a poll. And you will text your answers to a phone number. We're going to see if this works. You can't really practice with it beforehand. So let me share my screen. This one. So with that, can you see this quiz right here? Does everyone see that?
Nope.
I don't see it.
It's blank.
It's blank.
Yeah, it's just white screen.
See, this is why I planned to mainly do this, because I knew that oh, come on. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Do you see a quiz?
Yeah.
All right, let me hide this. So we're just gonna do this. Can you see the code?
Yes.
All right, so that's the phone number 22333. And the questions are, what word below means both hello and goodbye? Or you can use it as both hello and goodbye in the language. And then you just text that code to that number. I'm going to try this too and see if it works. We got one person who answered. And don't look up the answer. You can't cheat. Just go off what you know. All right, did everyone get a chance to answer? Okay, so the answer, I'll go ahead and give it. Most of you are correct. It is aloha. Aloha has like 500 different meanings in Hawaiian. It's a very limited language, but you can use it as both hello and goodbye. Bonjour is French, Jambo is Swahili, and Ni hao is Mandarin Chinese. So I'd say most of you passed.
I got it wrong. Aloha.
What?
Hello. Aloha.
Hey, are you back now?
Aloha.
Aloha. Or actually in Hawaii, they say aloha. It has to, Now we get the fun part of me getting back to the actual screen. See, I'm used to using Skype at work, so I'm really very much a noob. And
See,
and
Kim and I
Zoom.
thought that was the fun part. She's laughing all the way through.
I know. I'm like, well, this is gonna be fun. We'll see if the technology works, which is funny talking about technology and in foreign language. But I felt it'd be good to demonstrate a little bit, because that's the interesting part to me about foreign language and emerging technologies. It's not really a specific field of its own. What it does is it just capitalizes on all of the other technologies as they come about. So somebody created a Poll Everywhere app. Well, I gave a very basic example of using it for foreign language. And foreign language departments, particularly at colleges and universities, have been capitalizing on technology as it emerged. I mean, long before many of the other departments. I mean, I remember having cassette tapes that had language on it, because one of the primary problems that foreign language teachers throughout, as long as people have been learning foreign languages, have had is, how do you get people to be able to hear the foreign language? We've had printing presses for a while, so finding written material was easier, but the ability to have your students hear a native speaker, that has always been something that foreign language departments have capitalized on. There were language learning labs long before most students ever had even computers that they were using for other subjects. And then when I did, I'm not going to try and share the screen again. I was about to pull up Canvas and show my week 8 in the alternative syllabus. But one of the most interesting articles I found was by Dyson, who actually is in his class, Gilbert Dyson. I didn't even realize when I picked the article, he responded that I picked an article with the author who actually is in this class.
Yeah, I think his daughter has a birthday or something, so he couldn't be here tonight, something like that. So yeah. So send some love to Gilbert here for all what he's done more research than most students ever could think about. I mean, he's read most of this stuff and done in it. So yeah, it's pretty cool to have a student who's done research that we've read.
And then, I mean, he's doing it a little bit, I guess, on the cutting edge, more of these intelligent personal assistants, and that's where we're getting into the realm of going down further with foreign language. They're looking at AI and robots and what could be done with that, because his article was on Alexa, and it makes sense. Foreign languages departments looked at Alexa and said, hey, here's this thing that talks to you. What if you could talk to it in another language? Voila, you solve the problem of an actual person being in the room with you. One thing his found that was a problem was, especially for early language learners, these devices don't necessarily recognize the bad accents or the bad language. As a foreign language teacher, I got used to my students and I could figure out what they were trying to say. But if your accent isn't standard or you're not speaking well, the technology is not to the point yet where it can recognize everyone's voice and what they're trying to say. But that's where the future is going with AI. And virtual reality, same concept. What if we could put them in an environment, you know, transport you to a French cafe, and you could interact with the environment like you were actually in a French cafe. You know, we don't have to go to Paris. So that was, I'd say those are the more interesting aspects. Christian and I had a little bit of a back and forth in my week, because I had said that, no, follow me with this phrase here. When it comes to foreign language learning, anything that is anything that can be used to learn a language. For instance, you know, you want to learn German, put your GPS device on German and you can listen to it. And I said, when it comes to learning foreign languages, the world is your oyster, which everyone's heard that phrase, and Christian loves oyster. But then I realized I don't actually like oysters, so mine should probably be more, you know, the world is my coffee pot. That would make more sense for me. Christian's laughing. He loves oysters, so he likes that phrase. As much as I love that phrase, I don't like oysters.
Just grind everything up.
So I think it's the creative aspect of foreign languages and technologies. It's about finding what you can use. There have been a few, for instance, with Chinese, I've used a Pleco app where you can take a picture of the characters and it finds it in the dictionary for you, which is incredible, because with Chinese, unlike other foreign languages, you have to be an expert in Chinese in order to use a character-based dictionary. So having something that takes a picture of it and then, you know, finds it was revolutionary. But for the most part, foreign languages are just siphoning off what everyone else makes, which I think is cool. And I think that's all I have for now, Dr. Bonk.
Questions for Charity or comments, suggestions?
Oh, wait.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought somebody asked a question in the chat.
So I put the link to the alternative syllabus in the chat. I want to mention a couple of things while you're formulating questions for Charity. I thought it was really an excellent idea to wear a Hawaiian dress when she's talking about Hawaiian language, you know, so she's probably got dozens of those in her closet. So it's wants me to go. I love going to Hawaii, so, you know, just hanging out. The University of Hawaii Ed Tech program is one of the top programs in the country. And they have some fabulous people there. So if you are ever on the Big Island, so I'd be happy to connect you to some of those folks, and you can maybe sit in on a class or chat with the department chair. His name is Curtis as well, Curtis Ho,
Really?
or other people. So
the Big Island's great.
The Big Island too. The university is on Oahu.
Okay.
At Manoa, I think.
That's where I was stationed, Oahu.
Yeah, but in Hilo, they have some bonks there. Professor Bonk was there, but he's in archaeology and other kinds of things. But seriously, when you look at what she's provided for us, you can see that there are some trends. The emerging trends for this field are really representative in the language learning area. So having a robot to assist you in learning something, be it a language in this case. In Korea, they were using robots about 10 or 12 years ago because they were spending so much money hiring people like my son, who actually is Korean, but he wanted to go back, you know, teach a language. Other people were going back to teach English after they graduate from college, and that was their first job, for instance, and live in Korea and hang out, and it was expensive to get them health insurance and fly people over, and so they were experimenting with robots, supporting young kids to learn English, as well as AR and VR in Korea. And they were all doing alternative textbooks in Korea. They wanted to be the first country was fully online with online textbooks. There's a lot of things happening there in terms of language learning, because there is a huge need now in China. It's emerging as well. So Korea, China, Japan, Taiwan are places to look to in terms of inspiring uses of emerging technologies to learn a language. There's also an article number 2 this in the week, Charity, that you've got, which has kind of everything in it. It's got gamification in it. It's got VR in it. The title of that article is Foreign Language Gamification Using Virtual Reality, a Systematic Review of the Research in Educational Sciences by Pinto. and his colleagues or her colleagues. So I want to, if I was to recommend, I look at that article. Do you have any specific articles, Charity, that you want to pull out and recommend to folks that they might take a look at, or any particular resource on the second page there? There's a whole slew of resources that you've found and you put in. Could you focus our search a little bit?
Yeah, I know I have I have quite a bit. I did so the first two that you mentioned, well, Pinto and then Dyes and Gilbert's article, of course. And then where is it? The fifth article. I'm getting the fourth and the fifth confused, but the fifth article was an excellent overview, kind of touching on all of the ways that, you know, the current trends are going and where they have been used. And then I'm looking at the videos down here. I really liked the robot one just because it was so interesting. And just the idea that the technology is not there yet, but that's what they're working for. So is a third video, learning a second language with social assistive robot. And then the first video using AI, I would recommend this one because it was an excellent video, but also if you're interested in AI, this is another use that we're seeing with how to apply that technology to a language learning environment. And then where were the other ones? My favorites.
I will say that when you posted the videos in the alternative discussion forum, that's when I said, we need to have a discussion in class. So those videos are excellent. All of them. I watched all of them, you know, and top.
It was hard to pick favorites.
Yeah, it was extremely hard to pick. I agree with you. I think you said, was it the third one?
The third one and the first one.
Yeah, yeah.
If you really want a brain stretcher, the computational linguistics, I mainly included it, not because I really understand completely, you know, what's going on there. I'm like, you know what? It's a mental challenge, this one. It's like,
is that the panel that they were discussing computational linguistics?
Yes, I believe that was the one.
Yeah. Well, it's good to watch those to learn who are the leaders in the field, to get a sense of who are the people and where are they at, what universities are they at. It's a stepping stone. Any of these kind of videos, short, you don't have to watch a lot of these panels or full-scale lectures about a topic. Often just a few minutes watching will get you interested in finding out more about a person or a topic or a field of endeavor. So I like sampling, and that was a good one to sample. I was agreeing with what they had to say, but I did not watch the whole thing. I agree. I'll be honest. Anyone
it's
wants
like
that?
the string theory of linguistics.
Yeah.
That's where that one was headed.
Yeah.
And then I when it came to the websites, those were more where I was trying to find maybe some that had more practical things you could use, which included some websites that had actual apps. Those were, I'd say, the ones that, for instance, the 10 best language learning apps of 2021, 5 top tech trends in language learning. To me, a lot of what I found in the websites were more, these are things you could use for language learning. And I like that because this is something that a lot of adults do get into throughout their life. I mean, I plan to learn other languages, so I want to keep up with what's out there because there's some things that are specific to certain languages, but you know, it is something as an adult we're going to learn, and we learn language very different than children. So, and we want to learn language more the way that suits, you know, an adult lifestyle, more authentic. Adults are more likely to want authentic learning materials in the language. So having something on your phone, it's there. You're carrying it around with you. If you've got a long train ride to work, then, you know, these are resources you can have with you.
So if you think about a normal class, whether it's IST or special ed or educational leadership or educational psychology, people put together syllabi and they might tweak a few articles and update it, and the assignments try a new article or assignment out. You know, they might add maybe 5 or 10 different articles. This class, I think there are maybe 100 different articles I've never had in the syllabus before, and yet it's deficient. It does, in spite of adding, you know, you look at all the resources. I had some language learning resources in week 10, I think it was, but I certainly didn't cover the wide gamut that you have here. And I mean, I really found the talking to Alexa, because I do talk to Alexa every morning, but I haven't tried learning a language with Alexa. You know, she's the software within Alexa is pretty sophisticated, and I could see people experimenting with different ways of language learning using Alexa or other personal digital assistants as, you know, the device of use, because they're not that expensive, and you could get, I think, a tremendous benefit from it. It's kind of like our Duolingo studies with Shishi and I. It's a base knowledge that you can get from using Duolingo. It's not the end all be all. It's not going to replace teachers, it's not going to replace classes, but it can help the support structures within learning a language. Anyone have a final comment for Charity before we move on to Kim?
I just asked a question in the chat, and then you actually just brought something up about Duolingo, but I guess to you and Charity. But I was wondering, what are your thoughts on these type of apps like Duolingo, Memrise, Rosetta Stone? Do you think that they are sufficient ways to like functionally learn a language, or is it more just giving you, hey, I know some specific words, but then you can't actually use it, you know, if you were to travel to France, if you were learning French or whatnot?
Yeah, I'd say that they function more as support to language learning. It's going to be very hard to get to a fluency level where you could carry on a conversation using just apps. A lot of times that's where that's where that, you know, human to human, or eventually human to humanoid is going. And but they are helpful. Before I went to France for my immersion training, I'd been to France 2 times. I'd taken many language classes. I'd even taught French by that point. But I was arriving in Paris by myself and had to take public transportation. But I'd never taken public transportation in English, and I'd always had other people with me. But now I had to survive in the language, and I couldn't go to a class again and get a refresher. I was just using some CDs that I got from Barnes and Noble, and that really helped me. But again, it was more functional. You can definitely learn the basics of language, being able to read a menu. I mean, you know, obviously there's some things you're not going to be able to do. You're not going to sit down and have a conversation on War and Peace in the latest economic forum, but you could get around, you could survive. A lot of these guides are called survival guides. But again, learning any language, you need speaking, listening, you know, in these apps, but they'll definitely help get you to at least a standard point. And for most adults, when we go to learn a language, we're not going to go to a class. We're just going to get a little bit to get by. That'll be enough to get over there and learn a little bit more. So it depends on what your goal is. If you want to be able to hold actual conversations with people, you might need a little bit more than the apps, but they're a great start and a way to keep up with the language. I think that's probably one of the ways that they are the best at, is helping maintain language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And you mentioned about, I mean, adult learning a language versus children, because I know that there's that sensitive, right, period between when it actually starts to become difficult. How long would you say it would take an average adult to learn a language versus a child? So if you've immersed, you know, a 25-year-old and a 5-year-old, are you going to see like a huge difference in how long it's taking that 25-year-old to actually be able to be fluent in a second language?
It becomes a little hard to differentiate, only because the child wouldn't be at, you know, the level of speaking on the levels that a 25-year-old would be. But children, especially when they're very young, they're not even trying. They're just absorbing that. So if you have them in like a bilingual household, they're naturally just going to pick it up. Their brains are like little sponges with language. And as we get older, about the time that we hit adulthood, that starts to go away. And I was 28 at the military's like elite, you know, language academy, trying to learn Chinese. Let me tell you, even an 18-year-old versus a 28-year-old, I only had an advantage because I taught a language. I understood how to learn language. Had I been 28 the first time, it would have been very difficult. They got us to high fluency in about 1.5 years, and that's considered like record. That's the military shoving it down your throat like 14 hours a day. But again, it's hard to compare. Children don't have to try. If they just pick up the language. So, but as they get older, now they have to try harder. And that's just what happens with age. It's very unique with language.
Charity, when you were in the Defense Language Institute, Monterey Bay, I assume you were at DLE. Did you have an instructor by the name of Hui He?
Oh,
She's
you know,
a
the
former
name
student
has-
in this class. She's now there. I had two former students, well, one from P54, two Chinese students who are teaching at the DLE, and they talk. I mean, I haven't talked to them for a long time, but and so you may have.
Oh, wow.
You
I may
had.
have. The name's not striking a bell, but I probably have to see the characters of their name.
Right. So
But I
send
know
me.
there's a current student in the IST program who's teaching Chinese at DLI right now.
Well,
We
there's a
both
current
started.
student. Oh, really? So the
Yeah.
current student in the EDD program is teaching Hebrew, and I think they're phasing it out, and he's doing his dissertation on it. So he's doing
Oh,
his
wow.
dissertation on the moderating or facilitating of instructors to help students self-direct their learning in learning Hebrew at the DLE. So lots of opportunities for research in all this. And to answer Rebecca's question, these things provide a base and just provide confidence that you can at least approach someone with some pronunciation, that be it wrong or not being totally fluent, but it provides a starting point. And it provides a starting point to enter into a conversation or to ask for something. So there's value in that. But it's not going to replace the classes or a complete program or anything like that. But we all need that initial inroad into somewhere. We all need the initial connection. That's what we assign for LinkedIn. We got to be connecting to other people, or in Facebook and all. This is similar in that.
Like Christian had something.
Christian gets the last
Yeah.
word here.
I'd just like to kind of talk to Rebecca's point too. It's really interesting because I could watch German news all day long, passively taking it in and understanding the words that are being said. But when you take that to a discussion, like when I have to speak to Alexa in German, that's a very different skill set. And it does functionalize a set of that knowledge, maybe not perfectly, but yeah, I find it really interesting how well my phone understands me when I want to type in German. I just speak to it and it types all of the words right, and I'm like, wow, I'm a really bad speller. And then yeah, no, it's really interesting. I think it's fascinating, but actually just functionally speaking it is so different, and having a thing take that vocalization in and put it into text or respond to it, depending on what type of technology you're using. I think it's very different than just passively taking it in.
Austin, I wish you Charity a round of applause here and thank her for
Thank
the
you.
presentation. So yeah, it's great to have Sarah and Charity back to back, and Kim has been waiting in the wings to present on her week. And which week was it, Kim?
So we haven't gone to my week yet. We haven't done my week. My week is week 11.
So you can entice us into the week next week. Yeah.
Yes, maybe I could entice you. Okay, so I put together a very baby presentation to kind of get you guys into the game and thing. And I really want you to make it interactive. Cut me off at any time. You can throw things in the chat because I'm watching the chat too. So here we go. I'm also going to be using a thing called Slido. I don't know if anybody has used Slido before. I love Slido, and I use it in my classes. I will be using it coming this next fall in some of my classes. So if you have questions about Slido, feel free to ask because it works really well with large classes. Okay, so gamification and game-based learning, because we already did this in week 3. So I want to get your opinion and your input as to how to make it a little bit different, a little bit enticing to you and to kind of get the discussion started. So, and I am moderating both discussion boards that week. So you're going to be seeing a lot of me for the alternative and the monster syllabus. So week 11, gamification and game-based learning, making learning fun. Let's see. So why did I choose gamification and game-based learning? Really comes down to it's fun. I like to have fun personally. If I have to do something and it is really just like watching paint dry, I can't stand it and I'll procrastinate it. And some of you might be like me, some of you might not. But that's why I want to know a little bit more about games and the facts versus fiction, because as I was definitely found out in week 3, my understanding of the terms and theories is lacking. So knowing more and being more concrete on that is really important. I also really like active learning, and it's something, it's a strategy that I actively use in my own classroom. So I have their Think Kate's game at Thanksgiving to remind me that my cousin and I played this really cool cooperative game at Thanksgiving where we actually had to work together to win the game. And I'd never played a game like this. And I'm like, what are we doing? I want to beat you at Monopoly. Let me go and just beat you at Monopoly. And she's like, no, we got to work together. I'm like, I don't want to work with you. But it was actually great because I took some of that and I'm going to put it into my classes and got a really great, it was like a lock and key to game-based learning and a little bit of gamification, but game-based learning. And then my students are a huge driver. This is one of my students. I actually asked her to use this for permission. So this I don't condone. I just first and foremost, but I used to use Kahoot in one of my classes and she posted this to public Twitter. I won the Kahoot class for my reproductive class, driving 80 miles an hour on the thruway today. And it was definitely one of the top 5 proudest moments of my life. And I don't know if it's because she was driving so fast, but later in talking to her, it's because they loved Kahoot so much. They hate my lectures because I'm doing exactly what I don't want to do, which is direct talking to you and direct lecturing. So they loved Kahoot because it got everybody involved. And they really loved how I ran the Kahoot. So it kind of got me thinking, okay, how can I make this better? And thus why I wanted to focus on game-based learning and gamification, which are 2 totally separate things. So, I don't know why that was there. All right, so I want you guys to go, if you have your smartphone, you can click, you can scan the QR code on the screen. You can also join on your laptop, slido.com. It's SLIDO.com. And it's hashtag 22, I'm a little bit dyslexic at times, 220556. So 220556. Join my Slido. You will have lots of fun. Okay, so hopefully you guys are joining that. Ooh, so Dr. Bonk met the founder of Kahoot. That's amazing. I would love to meet him. It would be great. We could have lots of chats. All right, so my first one that I wanted to do for Slido, what comes to mind, and this is a word cloud, what comes to mind when you think of gamification? And if you want to throw in game-based learning in there, that's fine. But what comes to mind when you think about gamification? Let's just, and you can go and you can, I believe that I put the settings to, you can vote or you can respond as many times as you want. So if you're like me and you want to respond 5 times because you can't get enough of things, you could totally do that. So, and as this kind of comes through, I love it. Lazy learning. Yeah. Oh, I'm all about it. All right. So we have lazy learning coming through rewards, league boards, sorry. Badges, rewards, fun and competition. Ooh, get scores / winning the learning, especially in e-learning. Good grades. We got points winning, competition, lots of really cool things, leaderboards. Oh, so definitely getting more of the word cloud going now, which is something that really happens very quickly in a lot of my classes because there's so many students coming so far. Cheating way to learn. Ooh, ooh. I love it. Competition. And you guys have put in some really great ones. So definitely some of the things that come to mind when I think of gamification. So thank you for putting that up there. Candy. Yes. I like to hand out candy when it was in person. So sharing tips. Awesome. All right. I'm going to go on to the next one. So this is our
Tim,
mission.
Tim, can I interrupt
yeah.
you a second? So my son you call the sharing tips, he'd call them cheats. So cheats are not really cheating, it's just sharing tips.
Oh,
In some of these games like Halo and other things. So they just, when you get stuck, your friends can help you out, and they call it cheats, but it's not cheating per se.
but it's sharing those tips. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, I used to I played this game called Unblock on my cell phone, and I used to get those all the time. All right. So
Open education gaming.
yes, exactly. Education gaming.
Education gaming.
So I'm not going to cover all this, but I just wanted to make it a little fun. It's our mission for the night. Talk about gamification. I have like 2 slides on it: leveling up, games, and high score. So what is gamification? You guys already know this because we went through week 3. But it's a strategy that uses gaming elements to motivate students. And as Zixi, she definitely helped me to figure out the terms. It is serious gaming. So serious, and it's different than game-based learning. Okay, so that's really important to be able to understand. It's not just playing a game. It's the elements in the game, motivational tools that help students to engage with the learning and to be able to achieve. So I want you to really understand that, and especially with the next week, something that we need to really keep in mind. So these are some of the elements, achievement markers, so leaderboards, you guys talked about that, badges, leveling systems. You want things to feel rewarding. Collaboration is a big key player in some of the gamification elements, depending on how things are scaffolded and how they're put together and designed instructionally. And there can be problem-solving elements to it, but it should not feel like standard coursework. So it should not feel like they're actually getting graded. And this is where a lot of people, a lot of instructors sometimes get into the weeds, is that they make this, they make a course that's gamified, but it gets a little ominous. So gamification can be small elements or they can be course-long endeavors. It just depends on what you put in for designing. And these are some of the things that you guys actually brought up in week 3. And I thought I would just capture them in this. You brought up achievement, assignment choice, which is what Dr. Bonk did in this class and in his last class last fall. Collaborative strategies, online scavenger hunt. So like with a show of hands, or maybe even like raising your hand. How many of you have ever done an online scavenger hunt? Anybody done an online scavenger hunt? Okay, so we've had three of us have done an online scavenger hunt. They're lots of fun, but that's a way that you can go and can level up and bring a gamified element. Resources management, rewards, role playing is a big one, and storytelling elements. Some of the best gamified approaches that are actually in the literature use stories because you connect. Stories are connections. That's the whole point of qualitative research, right? I just had a great conversation with my qualitative research professor, and she's like, tell a story. Oh, hell yeah. So you can incorporate games into courses, and that's game-based learning. So just keep that in mind. It's not necessarily gamification. And there are live ones. These are the ones that I use in my own courses. And I thought that I'm going so fast because I want to try one out, maybe. But I use Kahoot, Factile, Brainscape, and Slido. And the one that I love the most is Factile. Has anybody here used Factile? You can shove that in the chat too. If you use Factile, if you've not used Factile, and if you have used Factile, how did you like Factile? Shove that in the chat. So some of the best practices that we kind of talked a little bit about in week 3, but I will bring up in week 7 through some of the articles that I've chosen include privacy. Maintaining student privacy is really important. That's why I said I made sure to contact the former student and use her tweet, which is not the best tweet, but to talk about that. But grades are really important to keep private. Time, do you have the time? I know I'm going to have a time issue here, but do you have the time to do some of the things you want? And do you have the software to do it? Can you handle putting it into your lens or not? I use Moodle. We're going to Brightspace. I don't know how I feel about that, but it is what it is. So can we do that? And does it align to the learning objectives in your course? So I'm really coming at this from more of a practitioner perspective rather than a theory perspective. And I just kind of threw this in here because I think it's really important. And I don't know if I've heard anything. I haven't seen anything in the lit yet about it, but I kind of wanted to look a little bit further this week. During gameplay, I've noticed that your game really depends on you as the person who's the host. Think Jeopardy, okay? When's Jeopardy got the most amount of views? It was when Alex Trebek was no longer hosting and they were trying to figure out who the heck was gonna host Jeopardy. Everybody was tuning in to see Aaron Rodgers and all kinds of people doing Jeopardy, and they want to see, that was a huge, huge deal. Okay, so use the chat, change your attitude, mix it up, use your hands. It's okay to use your hands. That's why they're there. Your voice has a lot of inflection that you can have. You can laugh, make sure you're using lots of tone, and you want to be prepared because you are the host and hosts are prepared. So if Aaron Rodgers went on Jeopardy and he was not prepared and looked like an idiot, they'd be talking about that on the field where he's not an idiot, but still, you guys get the whole thing. So this brings me to my last, I believe this is my last Slido question. This is an open text response.
Wait a minute, Kim.
Yeah.
He's an idiot. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a Packers fan.
It's okay.
It's being recorded, so I better not know.
It's all good.
I do like him. Yeah, okay.
But what would you like to focus on for the gamification gameplay next week? Are there some topics that we didn't go over that you think that you want to kind of talk about, or trying out some game-based tools? That's kind of where I wanted to go with this, but I didn't know. I kind of wanted us to maybe like make a repository of some of these games because there are so many out there. It's just crazy. Blows my mind. And yes, yes, charity, especially on the field. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's see. Yes, try them. How to create a good mission for learners to work towards. Yes, we can definitely talk about instructional design, especially gamification, and how we can design essentially gamified elements within a course, and to even gamify an entire course. We can definitely do that. So, and you can, of how to avoid the negatives. Ooh, that's a good one. I have actually brought up some journal articles that I found and some tidbits too for that week of how to avoid the negatives, how gamification can be social. We can definitely do that. And what's cool about Slido is I can actually take this, download it onto a Google sheet, and then I can just take this away and print it, which is what I'm going to do tonight. So that way I can gear up for next week. All right, so we're gonna leave this poll. How many of you want to play a quick game? And you can unmute yourself for this, okay? Because my students have found that it's best when you're unmuted, but if you can't, I completely understand that. It's not a big deal. All right, so let me go to, we're gonna do Factile, because it sounds like not a lot of you have done Factile. And I sweat Factile. I love it. So Factile, it's exactly. It actually, you can put that in there. The The website for Factile, if you want to create your own free account, is playfactile.com. I just shoved that in the chat. I'm going to start my own game, and I wanted you guys to, so I have a couple of different games to play. So you can either play one of the games from my reproduction class, which I can tell you, I am going to tell you there are certain sexual terminology in there because I am a reproductive teacher, or we can play one that I found called food because food unites us all. So which one would you want to play? Food or repro?
Oh, we should probably play the game in which you teach.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. Let's
we're
do
gonna,
this.
are we gonna know about that one?
We're gonna, I think you might learn some terminology today, and it's all for the good one. So, all right, I'm gonna play the final exam review because it's gonna have everything. All right, so we're gonna play Factile Jeopardy style. And oh wait, you guys can see this. Okay, good. How many teams? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 of you. You can have people work cooperatively. I've used this in class, in person, and I've also used it synchronously online. If it's done synchronously online, it's hard for people to be in teams. So I usually go with individuals. So I'm going to put 9 down. And we do want to have buzzers. You're going to need your phone for this because it's much easier to do it on your phone. Okay. And I'm going to put it for the question and the buzzer on this. All right. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. But for you to join this game, you're going to go to the following link. It's www.playfactile.com/join. And our join code is 0539. Join code. So come on and join down with me. You can pick, yes, as you guys have probably figured this out, you can pick from a host of different foods and some creatures. And my students have a blast in choosing what they are going to be. So you can definitely choose lots of things. I've seen lots of different things, and then they name themselves something. Usually for this class, particularly, they name themselves something that I am very excited that they are using proper terminology, but totally inappropriate for outside of the class. And these are college students, by the way. These are all college students. All right. So we got 6 people so far.
You need to sign up, Kim, to play this game. Do you have to?
You do not have to sign up. Nope. You just join. You can just join. Okay. And I'm glad that Shishi is helping you. Thank you, Shishi. All right. So if you haven't signed up yet, you can follow the link in the chat, and the join code is 0539. So I'm going to start the game. So only 6 out of 9 have joined. I'm going to show you that how you can actually begin. All right, select a question. This is how you play, okay? So you select a question by category and dollar amount, literally Jeopardy, okay? Oh, crap. Whoops, I went into the wrong one. We're gonna go back. Okay, hold on. We're going to start a new game, guys. We're going to start a new game. Let's do exam number 1. Okay, please, dear Jesus, let this work. We got 9. All right, so you're going to go to the same thing. And instead, your join code this time is 5818. Thanks, guys.
And if you just hit refresh on your browser, it'll get you back to the.
Oh, perfect. Look at that. Christian, thank you. Hit refresh on that browser and it'll get you back. So we got an onion, a pineapple, watermelon, potato. a banana. Ooh, a fox. Yeah, look at that. We got an assortment of different veggies. I love it. Okay, so we're gonna start. Oh, and we got a second one, a stegosaurus. Let's start this game. Yes, 7 have only done. So again, you're gonna select your question by category and dollar amount. Okay, so for this game, we have hormones, female anatomy, history of reproduction part 1, history of reproduction part 2, because we go over 2 weeks of history, estrus cycle, or a toss-up, because I like to make it extra hard for my students. So who would like to begin?
Toss up 300.
Okay, so toss up for 300. We have learned the most from which species when it comes to advancements in reproduction. Okay, hold on a second. I gotta learn how to turn off the damn music. There we go. Fox? When I call
Cows.
cows. You are absolutely correct, Rebecca. It is cows, my favorite animal. Woo! Okay, so when you do hit, when they get the answer right, the one thing you have to remember is you have to know the answer to the question. They get the point amounts, and you can make it so that people get negative points. I don't do that in my class, actually. So you can go and have other people then help each other out, and that's how I try and make it more cooperative. So Rebecca, you selected, go back to the board.
Oh, so now I pick. How about history part 1 for 200?
History part 1 for 2. Who is hypothesized that life was developed from menstrual blood 2,350 years ago? Who was it?
It was someone in Greece. That I know.
Banana.
Aristotle?
Aristotle is correct. Yes, Aristotle. Okay. So we'll do one more. Christian, you get the next question.
Female anatomy for 400.
Female anatomy for 4. Follicles that remain in the ovary arrested and not doing anything are known as blank. They are waiting to be recruited. This is a hard one. I would not expect any of you all to know this. All right, so as the countdown, see there's a countdown that you can actually go and you don't have to, you can change the time. Usually I think it's about 20 seconds in total, but it actually goes through the Jeopardy sequence. So at the end, you can call on people, but banana?
Is it phalanges?
It's not phalanges. It is not phalanges. And if I hit the X, it'll actually take the money away from you. That's how I set this game. It's okay. Anybody else? Watermelon. Uh-oh, who is watermelon?
No, sorry, my daughter clicked that button, so I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. Anybody else want to try? Oh.
Why don't you give us the answer? Let's try one more question before we end this.
Okay,
So
well, I'm giving it to Watermelon because his daughter is super cute. Primordial follicles are the answer. And then one more.
So God's got to guess. So God get the category in the
Yes. Poor guy.
Go.
Oh. I think he might have moved.
Yes. Can we do hormone for 100?
Hormones for 100.
Oh, my thing went off.
The corpus luteum or luteum produces which hormone? And actually, this is a really easy one for most of my students. These are one of 2 main hormones that dictate all of female reproduction.
Well, make us all feel dumb.
Pineapple.
I'm gonna guess estrogen.
Pineapple, why don't you switch that to the other one?
Testosterone.
Oh, switch it to the other one that's not a male, but you would produce it during... What?
Progesterone.
Progesterone is right. progesterone is right.
Charm.
Yes, thank you. So
That's
I just
one of
wanted
the
to,
only 3 hormones I know. So
well, thank you guys all for playing. I hope it was a little interactive, but this just gives you a little bit of an idea of game-based learning. So not gamification, but game-based learning. So I'm going to stop my screen.
Any questions before we go to break here? So
I had a question for Kim. Since you haven't presented this yet, when you do put your, I guess, your topics in your week, is there anything, or maybe you haven't found it yet, that you could put about that idea of finding a good quest or mission? Because when I was doing my midterm, I read one of the ETRD articles. It was on gamification. And one of the things that article brought up was that most time, especially for e-learning, it's all about points. But they said that their research as a meta-analysis found that if you can find a good quest or mission, that was one of the most impactful things you could do. And as an instructional designer, that just got me thinking about how I could really come up with a good mission or quest. So if there's anything when you put your week out next week that you have on that, I'd definitely be very interested.
Absolutely. I can definitely meet that need. Definitely. And it was classification and good quests and missions. That's what I have down. So kind of, and in the instructional design viewpoint.
Yeah, when learners had a quest or a mission they had to accomplish, that was one of the most impactful gamification aspects, according to that meta-analysis.
Okay.
other comments, Shishi. She says, hi, Kim, great interactive presentation. My questions are, what are the constraints of gamification? How about game-based learning? Shishi, you want to sit right here?
Hey, Shishi.
Hello, Kim. That's my question for you. Like, what's the difficulties implement gamification or game-based learning?
That's a great question. And I am going to take my best crack at it from what I have seen in the literature so far, is that with gamification, it comes down to motivation. How are you able to motivate the students to be able to be interactive with the game, and then making a game that has a universal design for learning? There's been some studies recently about gamification elements and making it so that it's the students are getting actual learning out of it rather than just playing the game mindlessly. And that it can sometimes not be accessible for all students. So if there are any issues with hearing or with vision, those students then lack the opportunity to play in the game, so to speak, or I should say, have a part in the gamified elements of the course. And then I think on the practitioner side, it works great if you have instructional designers and content matter experts, faculty members, because I look more in higher education. I didn't really look in secondary ed or primary ed. But if you have people who understand what gamification is and how to design quality gamification, because if you don't understand it, then it's going to be poor and the students are not going to engage in it. As far as game-based learning, what I found through kind of looking through the pandemic, I love this stuff of like the pandemic stuff that came out. People just added game-based learning. They just wanted game-based learning. So now what they're seeing is that students sometimes are turned off to it. They're like, oh, another game online, another thing. So there's the motivation element that's being seen in the literature there too. And kind of getting out of what we've done during the pandemic and kind of entering into this phase, I don't know, in education that is going to be post-pandemic if we ever come out of this thing. So, but that's what I've seen. I'm no expert. You're definitely more of an expert than I could ever be.
Thank you, Kim. I think that's a good answer, and I think we fall next week. And I guess another question is, do you think some group of students like K-12 or higher ed, or maybe I don't know, kindergarten students, they might still play games? Like, do you think certain group of people are more benefited from like game-based learning or gamification than others?
That's a great question. I think that all personally, and this is not going off of fact, but I think all learners can be benefited from game-based learning. I do think that there is at times a culture aspect to it, where I see this a lot with my rural students. When I added in game-based elements to my courses, like I made a leaderboard for one of them when I found out about gamification, and the ones that really were into it were some of the students that came from city. They came from New York City. They had more chances to be able to be in a gamified environment, whereas the students that I had that came from a more rural environment, and I'm not trying to cast any, I'm just saying, just in just my experience, that the students who came from a rural background were more put off from that than anything. So I do think that there's Joshua Danish, who's at IU. He's done some work in primary education using game-based learning with bees. And they found that they can really promote primary education for students learning more complicated information like the bee dance and pollination and all that, like communication with bees using games. So I think that it's the gamut. It's from everywhere, you know. So I do believe that 80-year-olds and even 3-year-olds can benefit from games. Everybody can benefit from a game.
Thank you, Kim. That's a good answer. I have some more questions, but next week.
Yes, that's fine. Next week, bring it all, guys. Bring it all.
Well, actually, I'm going to add that I think we'll start the following week off, week 13, with maybe Kim showing us more on games too. Because next week we have a lot of presenters, and I'll list you at the end next week, but I got a feeling it'll be wrapped over into the following week. Not positive. I want to point out that there are some familiar names here, or at least one. They are week 8, the 8th article of Kim's in this week has Timothy Kifong Hu as a co-author. He is an alum of the IST program. He's a graduate, and you saw his name under MOOCs. You saw his name in our open. He's got a lot of stuff. Timothy has done a lot of research, and so he's now in University of Hong Kong. He was at National Institute of Education in Singapore, where he's originally from, but he's moved to Hong Kong. And if you ever go to Hong Kong, you want to visit somebody who's doing something in the field, I'm sure Timothy would love to meet up with you. So that's one thing. The Kahoot and the Slido, when I was in East Asia and Southeast Asia, I saw both of those tools used at the conferences that I was at. So they seem to be tools that were very popularized within Asia, whereas Padlet is a tool that I saw popularized first in the UK and then in Australia. So there's cultural things to a lot of these tools where they move about and get utilized. Serious Gaming, there's a Serious Gaming Center in Coventry in the UK. I had the folks from Coventry as guests in this class quite a long time ago. And UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine has a couple of IU alums in their program, in particular, Kurt Squire and his wife, Constance Steinkuhler. Constance was in charge of gamification for the K-12 schools when the Obama administration came up. And Kurt is very famous for using civilization to teach historical knowledge, and that was his dissertation, but he's done much more. So Kurt Squire, one of the big experts, is an alum of the IST program, and his wife, Constance Steinkuhler, is studying World of Warcraft and other things. But there's some different people. I mentioned them before, I think. Do you want, when Kim asked, do you want to play a game? You notice the first one who raised his hand was Christian. I'm just pointing that out now. It was an immediate reaction. Also, Kim, during her presentation, said week 7. I think she meant week 11. Her week is week 11. That was just a Freudian slip, I think, 7-11 she was thinking of. But so yeah, the Kahoot guy, you know, he's interesting. He built his tool by himself. He's a computer science programmer in Norway, and he just with his own funds built the tool, and it went global. It went viral, and he did a sabbatical at UC Irvine or UC Riverside, and I got to meet him that way. And he said he'd be a guest in this class if we were ever. But now at this point, I think he's probably in a much more high demand. That was in the early days of Kahoot. So yeah, and already then it was very popular. So I appreciate you showing us all this, Kim. I think we should take a 5-minute mind break here, 5, 6, 7 minute, and we'll come back. Tuli, do you have a presentation or something about your week that you'll present?
Well, actually, it's not a presentation, but it's a kind of an activity that I'm going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't
But
start.
I don't think that it would take long. I
Okay.
don't think that would take a long time.
Great. So I think we'll go to Belle next. I think she's got a short, just wants an enticement into her week. We'll go to Tuli, and then we'll end with Christian and Ga. Right, Christian and Ga, you have a short presentation?
Hey, Dr. Bonk, Rebecca has her hand raised, by the way.
Yeah,
Oh.
Rebecca.
Thank you, Kim. So I was on the schedule. I didn't know if you still wanted me to present. I was actually supposed to present
I
before Kim,
skipped you.
but now I don't want to go after Kim. Hers was so amazing.
I did skip you. So we'll start with you when we come back from break. Kim.
Okay.
You have an activity or a presentation or just?
Just a short presentation.
Okay, we'll go to you and then Belle and then Tuli and then Christian. So why don't we go off to break, and I will pause the recording if it allows me to. So I am recording. I'm gonna not go the order I said. I want Belle just to give us overview of her week. I think it's the second last week or week 14, as Belle's gonna present again next week some technology tools. Week 13, Belle? Oh, week 15. So week 15 is Belle micro-credentials, which is a really hot topic today. Everyone's talking about digital badging, micro-credentials, and the future of learning and education. I have a student dissertating on the topic of badging. I think I got a dissertation a week I'm reading lately. A lot of people graduating this spring and this coming fall. If you're in my R511 class, you would know I brought Zihong Zhao from IU East campus, and she's going to present on badging her dissertation. So Belle was interested in badging in micro-credentials and what's called nano degrees. And Belle, why don't you tell us what you found, what your interests are, what they should be thinking about reading from there.
Okay. So can you hear me? Because the internet is not really stable here, but I will stay outside. So my week is the last week. So micro-credential, digital badging, and the future learning and education. We didn't use digital credential because micro-credential is just one of digital credentials, and people also call it disruptive technology. A disruptive technology is something new within an industry that has potential to improve current process. So for micro-credential is potential impact. It has potential impact on training, professional development, education, and hiring industries. So with that potential, but those potential need to take time to be standardized and accepted by peoples. And micro-credential are one of the disruptive technology. And the digital badging is one of the micro-credentials. And in the readings that I choose, you will see a lot of issues talking about digital badges. Even though the use of digital badges is a trend in today's education and professional settings, there is a debate of whether digital badges are effective pedagogical tools for what purpose that they are best suited. For example, used for rewards, incentives, or assessment, or for like skill recognitions, like in what settings, for example, K-12 for kids or for adults. So maybe through the reading, you could thinking of why we need those digital credentials. Is that because the job market is like transforming, or is that because what the future education will be changing, or the learning environment is changing? And what value does digital badges will add to the future education and professional settings? And also, I remember that there is a debate about whether digital badge need to be standardized. Some people think it need to be standardized to use it widely and to add the validity of the digital badge. And some are thinking an opposite way. For example, they think that's why the digital badge is special. It's not the same as the certificate or diploma from the university. So there are a lot of issues that talking about digital credentials, future education, digital badges. And I don't know, like we talk about MOOC. MOOC is a setting that we use digital badge a lot, and also self-directed learning course. So we could think of the question like how digital credentials support high-level strategies, because we are thinking of more soft skills and high-level skills, and how digital credentials are used to reward learners, and what are the quality digital credential solutions. So those are the questions that we can think about during the reading. I choose one reading about 21st century skills that required for the future students. So how we can use this for their lifelong learnings, how this new disruptive technology can help students do transformative learning. Those are all about last week's reading.
So I'll stop you there, Bill. That's really good. That will get us enticed into that week, but there's a lot evolving in the field. And where and when will that just be used, or micro-credentials be used, and how widely will they be accepted? And is the sense of acceptability a changing, or is it is it something that is an important research question that some of you might ask in doing your dissertations, looking at the marketplace? If someone has a micro-credential, or are they more ready or deemed to be ready for particular jobs that are out there, or capable of getting the positions in the 21st century if you just come with micro-credentials and not have a formalistic degree, not have a college degree or higher or beyond, if you just come with a set of micro-credentials? That's a key question that's being asked today. Also, how one puts together a portfolio of one's work so that you can showcase those micro-credentials, how they in turn are shared, how they are disseminated to the people who've earned them. There's a lot of issues here in terms of the quality assessments of micro-credentials. I would just want to point out that the second article the first article has Jill Stefaniak from University of Georgia. She's an up-and-coming person in the field of educational technology. The second article has Rick West from Brigham Young University. He's one that seems to have his hands in a lot of the emerging technology area. In fact, his courses have open textbooks. He's got an open textbook for this field of learning, design, and technology for the intro courses like R511. And then the fourth article or fifth article is by Timothy Newby, who is Dr. Leftwich's advisor. If you've had a course with Dr. Leftwich, he's at Purdue. He was my guest in our 511 last semester. He's a wonderful human being. That's article 5. So there's some people in this field who have authored some of the work that Bell picked out. So if I was reading them, I would recommend articles 1, 2, and 5, and also article 3, which doesn't have a particular author under it, but it looks kind of interesting. So article 6, how augmented reality enables conceptual learning of challenging science context. A little bit different. Article 7 gets us into the future, gig qualifications for the gig economy. So Bell, I think that's it. Anything else, Bell?
No.
Any comments? With that, I'll go to Tuli. Tuli, would you like to present on your week? Then we'll go to Rebecca, and then we'll go to Christian and Bell.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to, my topic is equity and belongingness in science education. Well, actually, we could take it as like STEM education as well, but like basically, so I took it as science education, so then I can talk about it because that's my field. I'm a PhD student in science education. So, I'll be doing this in week 12. But anyway, we can talk about the belongingness and how the belongingness has been changed with the virtual learning and post-pandemic learning, and as well as non-conventional virtual classrooms. So before we start, I have a little activity. So I am sharing this link with you. I think we can, let me see that if it is not working. So so you can agree with this statement, or you can can you access that? So I am telling you, like if I say that belongingness opportunities increases because of the virtual learning, and as well as belongingness is decreases, belongingness opportunities decreases because of the virtual learning. Oh, okay.
Did anyone get access to that? Raise your hands if you've got, no, none of us got access. Okay.
Can you try now?
Okay.
Sorry.
So it says I still need access.
Yes, okay.
Was what?
Let me check.
Did anybody now get access? No?
Can you try that now?
Shishi got in.
All right, great. So
I got in too. Okay, great.
Right. Thanks. So what you could say that there are 2 pages, like you can agree with this statement. And if you're agreeing with that, you are more belong because of the virtual learning and because of the modern learning rather than the classroom teaching. So you can take, you can say that I am agreeing because of this. And you can, so I have made one comment on it. So, but you can still say that you are not agreeing with that because of due to this reason. So you can agree and you can give reasons for both. So I can give you like 3 minutes. Like
I think we have view only access, Tuli. We can see it, but we need in the share settings, we need edit and view access.
oh, okay.
It's okay, Tuli. It happens to the best of us.
Sorry.
Yes, it does.
Give me a second.
We all belong in the techno world of changes.
Can you try now?
Still view only.
So who put less bullying on there?
No.
Okay, now we can do it.
Yes.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've got it.
So you could say agree or you could say disagree. Okay. So yeah, so well, actually, when I was starting with studying about the belongingness in science education and STEM education and overall education, the first thing that I came across with the less bullying. So because of that, students preferred, like especially African American students and Latino students say that they experience less bullying in virtual classrooms. But we can still cannot agree with that the statement fully, because like we know that the cyberbullying and cyberbullying is becoming more and more it's a kind of a prominent it's becoming famous and it's becoming more prevalent among high school and middle school students. And also, like, we could say that it is good for the minority and the African American and Latino students, and as well as Asian students as well. But the thing is, like, when it comes to technology and as well as the Wi-Fi and internet and the even like household with the desktop, Latino students, Latino households and African American household, it is less than the other. So then we do not know that it is a kind of a, so I mean, like, we cannot say it is, we can agree fully or we cannot disagree fully. So I mean, we can make a dialogue to talk about that. So as Dr. Bonk showed his pants, I wanted to show this video because, well, actually I was this is I'm going to show the screen.
Optimize sound and video at the bottom. You have to click buttons, optimize.
Pardon me?
If you click optimize sound, optimize video, when you hit share screen, it's at the bottom. Did you click the buttons for optimize sound and video? You might stop sharing and then share again. Click.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So when you click share now, you look at the bottom of the screen. It should say optimize sound, optimize video. See that? Okay. You can try it. See, when you click share, look at the bottom of the screen, and then yeah. Julie, do you see that?
Share screen. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
Now
Right.
you can click play. Mhm.
Yeah, so this is well, actually this is a teacher. So, well, actually I found him not in TikTok but on news. So let's see first what he's doing, and then we will talk about what
Our Fresno Unified teacher is now a TikTok sensation for his throwback moves that are getting new views and even garnering attention from celebrities.
Action News anchor Brittany Jacob visited Tenaya Middle School today and caught up with everyone involved in the viral post. She's here in the studio with that teacher's swag at school. Brittany?
Margaret Warren, that's right. Right now, as we speak, this video on TikTok has reached more than 30 million views in 3 days. Austin LeMay is the teacher dancing, and he's the campus culture director at Tenaya Middle School, a role that allows him to do exactly what he's doing, connecting with students.
Whether you were dusting your shoulders off or leaning and rocking, the memorable hip-hop dances from the early 2000s is making its way through the viral TikTok dance craze, like this 2009 song, You're a Jerk.
I know. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. I know. You're a jerk. I know.
And the energetic teacher, Austin LeMay, busting out his old moves for his students.
All the comments are like, he's been waiting 12 years for that. I've been waiting 30 years for this, man, finally.
Dancing on Fridays after class is a regular event for students at Tenaya Middle School in Fresno. These teens get to show their moves outside of the classroom or even praise Mr. LeMay for his.
And this is my job and this is my career, but more than anything, I mean, it's my passion. As it is with every other teacher and adult here on campus, these kids are our passion.
The video was posted by another teacher, Jenny McCauley, to bring attention to the good things happening at the school. Within just 1 day, millions of views. McCauley says the student-staff connection is a high priority for the school.
You know, we upped our game pretty much. We stepped it up, we engage with the kids, and we have fun. Having fun is really important to us.
It's been very important to us to provide an environment where kids want to be here. They want to come and connect with other people, and I feel like if kids' heads are in the right spot and they're feeling safe and they're having fun, then we can teach them anything that they need to learn.
I made this, guys. I made a star. Dariana Tepakaisen is one of Mr. LeMay's students. She is the mastermind behind the original post.
Due to the pandemic, like things like slow things down, and so I feel like kids are still kind of like scared to come back to school and try to make new friends. So I guess like having things more fun makes them feel included and like makes them excited to go to school.
I love it. I love it. Now LeMay credits his mother and father for his moves and willingness to get up and dance. And
Okay, so actually, I'll stop it because like we have limited time. But actually, when I started following this teacher, I watched a few of his interviews, and then like what he told is like what he tried to do using this is like make the students make the high school or the middle school like kind of a happy place and come to place like a belonged a place to the students. So well, actually I was thinking like, wow, like when I was a high school student, I was not very happy to go to the high school, and because like it's like the science teacher come teaches science, math teacher come teaches science, math, and that likewise like, and I was not entertained to go to the school. So then like when like I wanted to link that with this link, well, actually, I'm sharing. This is not a video now, but this document. Okay. Okay. So this is OECD library, sense of belongingness at school. So like the OECD countries, the overall students' feeling of belongingness, like how they belong to the school, average. So if you see that, I think that you can find the United States. So no, sorry, not here. This graph. So it's the highest is top is Spain, and the lowest is Brunei. You can see OECD average here, and United States lies like all the way down, like just before Ukraine. So what I felt that like when I was studying these graphs and documents, American kids feel less belong to their school, and unfortunately this was not studied with well, actually they have studied with the gender and as well as their race as well, but anyway, like in overall, like they feel not very belong to the school. So so my target in week 12 is like well, actually I will find another good video like that. Well, actually, I have already choose that, so I will show it. And so then we will probably we will have a graph, because I'm really like to discuss and analyze graphs. So analyze that kind of a graph, and then we will discuss what are the problems that we can find out, and what are the belongingness related problems, and as well as solution that we can, like a parent solution that we can suggest for that kind of things.
I'll stop you there, and I will say that Tully's really provided us with 2 topics for 1 week. The diversity, equity, and inclusion is a seriously important topic we see across the country today being emphasized, but at the same time, the focus on belongingness in the era of the pandemic, when there's a lot of depression. My most recent study is looking at depressed students in Korea and their ability to focus and perform and be engaged in their learning versus those who are not depressed. And so there's a real huge need for finding ways and professional development on those ways for teachers to build a sense of belongingness, a sense of community of inquiries, a framework to look at online classes for the degree of teaching presence, social presence, and cognitive presence, which is part of the dissertation I was on today. But that's one area that people are focusing on. How do we build a community? How do we build belongingness in these online, blended, or even face-to-face environments in an era where people are being displaced? We see all these people right now being displaced from Ukraine. There's a huge need there, but all across the world. It happened with Syria and with Yemen and other countries. So that's it. And now in South America, Central America, and so forth. But at the same time, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a huge topic. So we have two huge topics in week 14. Tully, if you could provide for us that video, Kristen and I will add that to the alternative syllabus. And if you have, don't share that with us yet until you found all the videos that when you have them all, then then we'll change the syllabus. So if you think you're going to find some more, hold off for at least a few days, and then send them all. And Christian and I will get that updated, and we'll send that to everyone. Does that sound like does that sound good, Tilly?
Yes. Yeah.
So I want to give a round of applause to Belle and to Tilly for that. A serious round of applause to Rebecca for reminding me I skipped her, not on purpose. I didn't skip her. It's just I was going through rather fast. And so I want to stop it for a second and say, Rebecca, would you like to bring us back to your week? What week was it?
This week.
Okay, so week 10.
Yeah,
right?
and I'll try to be fast because I know that we're cutting close to the end of class. So I just have something very short. Okay. So it's actually this week of the alternative syllabus. So digital play and tech toys. And this is kind
Notice
of my—
Christian raised his hand again, the first guy.
It's a fun week, right?
It's all tech toys and digital play. That's it.
If anybody's read my post yet on the alternative syllabus week, you might have other questions for me.
Oh, well, I will look forward to getting to that tomorrow, Christian. So this is actually where my passion lies. I'm focused. My research is studying children's imaginative play, and I'm looking through for their media literary elements through their play that come across when they play characters and their plot action and things like that through toys and movement and the props that they use. So this is kind of why I chose to add this into the syllabus. And then I just stuck a little quote here from Mr. Rogers, everybody's favorite guy, right? Just to remind everyone that play, it's so important for our children. It's what they need to do. And we are seeing it being removed from schools, which is really, really sad, especially in the pre-K and kindergarten. Usually it was pre-K and kindergarten, it was filled with play and you had a little bit of learning. And now kindergarten, they only usually play at recess time. They don't have that free play environment anymore. So, okay, but moving to digital play. I've stuck a quote in here, and I like this quote. You'll find a million different quotes on Google for digital play. I like this one because it has 4 characteristic components. And so it has the imaginary digital situations, digital talk in imaginary digital situations, giving a new sense to digital objects and actions in imaginary digital situations, and then porous boundaries between digital play and social pretend play. And then that can happen in virtual space with different types of toys being connected to the internet, and then even play that's where you're just logging on to 2 devices. And I threw a definition here about connected play as well. And connected play can happen when children are bringing digital play into their imaginative play roles, or vice versa, right? So that's bringing a favorite character or storyline into their real world play, or incorporating imaginative characters into that digital setting. And then, yes, children are just wonderful and have amazing, powerful imaginations. So they're able to seamlessly move from that non-digital to digital realities very easily. So one of the studies, actually, I think it's Marsh, hers discusses how children can be on a device, but then they will play with little objects and then incorporate them into the device and then, you know, bring them back out. So it's just amazing how they can do that so seamlessly. And then our techie toys. Everyone loves techie toys, right? So there's a term that now we talk about, the Internet of Toys. So it includes all those toys that connect electronically and through play, those smart toys, and they bring together the digital and physical worlds. So I think one of the like big ones that everyone seems to know about, probably what, 9 years ago or so, was Pokemon Go, maybe 10 years ago. And everyone got very into Pokemon Go. And you even had people who lost the sense of their physical space, right? Because they were so into their digital device. And you heard about different accidents, people walking in traffic, people walking off of a cliff because they weren't paying attention to what was going around, on around them. So social networking aimed at children's interests also falls in this. Online gaming sites, electronic toys, games, and figures that have QR codes. So that's a really big one now. A lot of toys you'll see, and especially if you have kids, they'll have a component where you can make the toy come to life. So they can have a physical toy with them, and then the story expands further in this digital realm on their tablet or computer or whatnot. And then I stuck a quote in here about their creativity. So adults really need to allow children to, you know, just be kids as they do their best, most important work, which is play. And then I threw another quote down here with our tech devices, games, and toys that can be repurposed and or modified. So this was actually from an article, and I want to say they talked about gamification as well. So you might want to can read that one if you're really interested to that, get a little precursor for Kim's week. But there are several different devices and games that are discussed in this article that have low accessibility, and the authors go in and they make small alterations to it, and then they can become meaningful educational tools for the students. And then moving to online play. So our new approaches to social gatherings and play, right, due to the pandemic. And this is not just for adults. It's not just for our classes. My research project actually it's very funny. I got approval for my IRB 2 weeks before spring break of 2020. And I was planning to go into a school, had it all set up, got my permission forms and everything. And I was planning to go back after spring break of 2020. And that didn't happen, right? Nobody went back to school. So I wasn't able to actually start my research. And then in fall, I realized that wasn't going to be a possibility anymore. So I switched gears and I held online play groups. And so the children were meeting every other week until they begged me for weekly meetings. And so then we started meeting weekly. And the sessions were mixes of Lego play, digital play. They would play like online Lego games. Sometimes they'd peruse the internet and they'd look at Lego, look at the Lego site. They started playing is it Minecraft? Yes, Minecraft at the very end together. So it was just a very big array but it was all child-led, and it was whatever they wanted to do. But something that I noticed that was interesting was that the children who attended school online and those who didn't were very slow at doing things themselves. They waited for, permission to do things. Even though I was off to the side, they would still, Miss Rebecca, can I share this? And I think because they were in that school environment where they were just one and they had to be quiet and, they couldn't just openly free talk whenever they wanted. So children utilize screens to interact with one another, playing through the screen with actions or use of avatars. So they can take that form of a favorite toy or as a superhero, right? And so that's something that's really amazing to see, is instead of having that like parallel play where they're playing on one side of the screen and another side, that they can actually play together as if the screen is no longer there. Then affinity groups, they're formed when children develop those strong bonds based on that interest of themes, games, characters, whatever it is. And so my online groups were actually about Ninjago. I'm not sure if anyone knows that show. It's a Lego show about ninjas. And so they were very heavily into that. So a lot of things focused on Ninjago and Legos. So, but affinity groups do intertwine from real world to digital reality, which is interesting. So sometimes you can have, I want to say it's in Woolwin's, Karen Woolwin, if any of you have had her, her article discusses alternate reality where the students, it's called Club Penguin, and they're having groups together, the students are, and they won't let certain friends in because, they wouldn't play with them in, the real world or at school. So then they can't join them in their digital world. Or if they're not playing with them nicely in the digital world, they then won't play with them, afterwards. So I thought that was really interesting how they really carry those over. And then the informal learning and collaboration is constant as children react to that on a just in time and just enough basis. So I liked this a lot because there are countless educational possibilities of where online play can take us and take students. And so we really need to foster that as adults and educators for them. And then I just included some topics. And so I have these for the week to kind of think about. Something that I really caught my eye for this week was the theme of how children expand their playing field. So rather than just having, I have my real world play and my digital play, it's, I have all of this play, which I really appreciated. So I included some topics there, but then I also said, please don't let these limit you, and I would love to discuss play in any way. And then there's the references, they're all added on there as well. And that was it. I did have one, I was going to ask if everyone could share something that they like to play with, but we don't have time for that. So maybe just think about something that you really used to like to play.
Well, no, actually we do have time for that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you can put in the chat window, what do you like to play?
Either then or if even now, or something that you're seeing your children. So I actually, one of my first baby dolls, I passed on to my daughter and she plays with it. And that's like the best thing to watch her play with it. Lovely Nady. That was the baby's name.
So yeah.
Kim, I had sorry, Kim. Rebecca, I had a question for you. Based on your research, what would you say to parents who are looking at all of these things? I mean, the importance of play, traditional play, just being in the real world, and then all of these awesome things that we have with digital play, but they're trying to balance their kids' screen time. So do you have any advice? Because I mean, that's a big topic. They don't want even if they're doing educational things, a lot of parents are trying to limit, the amount of screen time. So where do you see as a good striking balance for moderation with?
So
all kinds of play.
I really think, yes, you do want to have a limited screen time, and it's with NIAC. So it's the National Association for Education of Young Children. And they have, of course, their guidelines for how long we're supposed to allow children to be on screen. For my personal self, when I had my son was actually part of one of my play groups. He wasn't involved in the second one. I didn't count that as his screen time because he wasn't sitting there not engaged. It was a two-way interaction the entire time. He was constantly having feedback. So I think that that's an important thing for parents to really focus on, that yes, they might be online, but it's not the same as just sitting there passively watching something or even playing a game, in the fact that, hey, I'm just going to play this game, click A, click B. Oh, I can type in here. They are, it's just constantly back and forth. And even better, most of the time, they always had something with them, something physical. So like one of my favorite things, they actually made backdrops for their Legos. So they designed backdrops in this hour time, set them up, and then had Legos in front of it.
That's
So
cool.
yes, I can't even see how that's considered screen time, right? I mean, yes,
Yeah,
there's a
that's
screen
totally different.
on, but so I think that that's important, is to see what exactly they're doing. Yes, even educational games, that is part of screen time, right? But I think that these online social play groups are a different field. And I actually interviewed 3 different parents and they all felt the same way. So from their interviews, I have that, and none of them said that this was screen time in any way, shape, or form. So it'd be something interesting to kind of keep tabs on too, just because so many students have been online for so long. So
Yeah, I guess it goes with the moderational things. There's so many different options out there.
Yes.
We all have a few minutes left. We have to go to Christian and Gub, but we have a question from Shishi. Before the question from Shishi, I want to point out Article 8 for the week is Rebecca's article. She had a quote to herself.
I did include it. I wanted to write it, but I said, well, probably should quote it.
So we've heard from Gilbert. We have Gilbert cited this week. We have Rebecca. So we have experts in the room here. So that's great to see. She mentioned Pokemon Go and also Club Penguin. So in my World is Open book, I talk about Club Penguin, but Pokemon Go came out after this book was published. So these technologies are constantly changing, and we have to think about what are the principles behind the use of them. What are the learning principles, approaches, or frameworks that stand the test of time? As there's new technologies come, new phases, or we move through different waves, as I pointed out in the preface to the ETR&D special issue. I want to also point out one of my AIs, my associate instructors, over 20 years ago in Ed Psych, had Mr. Rogers agreeing to be a guest for her class.
Oh, wow.
And then he died.
Oh.
And she didn't have him as a guest, unfortunately. So yeah, watch the movie on Mr. Rogers. It's a great movie with Tom Hanks. I highly recommend it. So Shishi has a question. She'll sit here.
Hello, presentation.
Hello.
My question is in the chat. I'm asking what kind of knowledge formation is possible with digital play and what is not possible.
What kind of knowledge is possible and then what kind is not possible?
Yeah, like when it's digital play, something you can achieve with it, but something you cannot. Like certain knowledge, maybe it's not possible, like the transformation of knowledge, maybe it's not possible. What are the like the situations?
Say that last part again, I'm sorry.
Oh, what kind of situation that possibly achieve digital play?
I'm sorry, did anybody else hear the end of that?
It's Shishi, it's the microphone. I think you have to center yourself.
Oh, can you hear it now?
Yes.
Yes, don't move your head while you speak.
Okay. Or maybe you can say the question in the chat.
It's your question a little bit higher up there at 09:31
Okay,
p.m.
so okay. So
These
what
are
new
literacy.
knowledge formations are possible through digital online play? Well, really what I've been focusing on are literary elements that they are, you know, and their embodied storytelling that they are perceiving through that, from either transferring from media and then showcasing it with one another, and then sharing that. Something that I wanted to do, I was originally going to look at Octonauts. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that cartoon, but it's a little bit more educational. Like parents would view this Octonauts as an educational cartoon generally, because it teaches children about things. But I wanted to choose something that was a bit more contested, that no parent, I believe, right? Like probably 99% of parents are not going to think Ninjago is an educational cartoon by any means. It's about ninja Legos, you know, and they talk about fighting, and I don't know if I think they say die. Like it's not something where they're learning things, right? Not in that traditional way, but through digital play, they're able to expand that knowledge. They're using something that they've seen, and then they are able to discuss it and move it forward and take it places that they normally couldn't go. So one of the things that I had said that they were doing, they play this Lego, there's a Lego game online. And so they had to learn how to function Zoom and then also go onto the website and play together. And this game was not a multiplayer game. So the students had, or not students, children, they had to learn how to play it simultaneously, but they couldn't see each other. So there was just them playing. So it was as if I was playing a game, Julie was playing his own game. I couldn't see his character, he couldn't see my character. Yet they started collaborating with one another, and they'd say, okay, well, I'm here, I'm at the rock wall. I can't get over it. Okay, let me go back and see how I can help you. And so a lot of that just kind of came about from them experimenting with this digital format. Whereas if they were in person, that would have never happened, right? So it's kind of giving them a totally different, a different method, right? And a different way to express themselves and to play. They have this alternate, turning their play into multimodal play, because they have physical, they have digital, they have media elements. So it's kind of turning it into that. I think one of the things that was difficult at the beginning, so I don't want to say it was impossible because it ended up, at the beginning, it was very much parallel play. So it was me playing, well, not me, but one child playing with their Legos and then another child on the other side, and they were just playing, and they would talk, but they would just play. And then there was this one wonderful group time when they built dragons, and they started playing through the screen as if the screen wasn't there. And so one of them crashed his dragon into the camera, and then the other one took his dragon's leg off and said, oh my gosh, your dragon got my dragon's leg. And so it was as if the screen wasn't there, right? And so that was my favorite group because it was such a just a turning point from when it became, hey, this screen is an obstacle, to, hey, it doesn't really matter. I can play the exact same way that I play in real life, right? So, I would assume that there are probably going to still be some negatives with it, but I think that the positives outweigh it, especially when so many people are still not meeting right now. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Thanks, Steve, for the question. I want to get Rebecca to clarify her job role or her potential job role. What would you like to be, or what currently are you?
Oh, well, I'm a literacy methods lecturer currently. That is not what I want to do long term. I would love to be like a youth educator at a children's museum or something along that route.
So where do you teach at now?
UCCS, University of Colorado Springs.
That's right. From a distance, you're in DC area or something, right?
Yes, just moved here. So yes, now at a distance.
Right. For as long as you can, yeah.
Yes, yes.
So again, a round of applause for Rebecca. Sorry, we can't go further about, this week. This week in the alternative syllabus. So in the forums in Canvas. So Christian and God, would you have a 3-minute version of your 10-minute presentation on computational thinking? Well, week 5.
Yeah, we can do that. So a little bit about why I choose the topic. My undergrad is in computer science. My first master is in computer science, second master is MBA. And between the first and second, I can clearly see that there's a gap. Before that, I was in computer science, totally technical. And then there's a meeting where people say, well, wait a minute, I don't understand what you're saying. And they keep saying that. And then where I don't have that problem, we're meeting with my colleagues in the computer science side. And later on, I kind of know that my thinking is entirely different and it's not normal thinking. Later on, I think I can relate to something like, well, we're using computational thinking where if we use that thinking to explain ourselves, the normal people wouldn't understand. So this is kind of becomes a little bit passion to investigate what it is and then how does that impact kind of the education side. So if you haven't know the field, just a little bit of the definition. Actually, definition is one of the problems in this is the best definition that most people agree on is basically CT is the process that formulating the problem and expresses solutions in such a way the keyword is the computer can carry out. So, and then a lot of people would kind of reword that to say, you know, we want to train the kids to think like a computer scientist. Exactly like my original example of how I go through is you have to think like a computer scientist in order to solve the problem because they do see and solve the problems differently. And this is some of the issues that people criticizing computational thinking is, what do you mean? Like, this is so vague of a definition. You can't possibly have anything out of that think like a computer scientist. So a little bit expanding is not programming, is not kind of writing a program so computer can do stuff, even though the definition says we wanted the computer to carry out our instructions. And also, this is beyond a specialization. This is the fundamental skills people argue, or educators argue, that it's for everybody in everywhere. To function in the modern society, you need to think like a computer scientist. So we'll hold on to that to see what they mean by the fundamental skills. So, and then the last emphasis is this is human thinking, not how computer thinks, because computer thinks entirely different than computer scientist. So a couple key concept is logic, algorithm. You know, those two are go hand in hand. Logic is like if it's Wednesday, I gotta eat noodles. So those are a basic fundamental logic. Once you pile a group of logics steps into a sequence, and that's algorithm. And other things like pattern recognitions and abstraction, automation, evaluation, those are the basic concepts. So I'm going to use an example to explain this a little bit more, because these are rather abstract concepts. CT practice is based on the principles or components. These are the practice we do as a computer scientist. One is, these are pretty common. You use this in your daily work. Problem decomposition, big problem, make it a smaller problem, and then we'll divide and conquer. And create computational artifacts. You have to create tools in order to get the job done. Testing and debugging is same as you proofread your articles and ready for publish for a few rounds. And only in computer science, we do testings differently. Iterative refinement is a little bit like the proof of concept and then to prototype and to final product. Collaboration is a big thing, and together with creativity it enables people to collaborate with other computational thinking humans, I guess. So this is an example that I will challenge everybody to think. I know it's about 940 or 950. It's hard to think. So the problem is the goal is to get the sum of all natural numbers For example, we want to get the sum of 1 to 100, right? So if you ask the kids, like 5-year-old, they would start counting, like 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, and then 6 plus 4 is 10, and so on and so forth, right? So that's a naturalistic way of thinking as humans. If you're a math major, congratulations, you're definitely above my level. You would remember this formula of saying, hold on. Go. So n is the total number, a is the first number, d is the distance of the sequence, or what do you call those? Array or sequence of natural numbers, and then you plug in 100, you plug in 1, you plug in 1 as d, and then you calculate, you should have 5,500 as the answer. So that's a math solution. So if you're thinking about CT solution, this is entirely different way of thinking or approaching the question, or even looking at the question differently. So the left side is the CT solution. First of all is we have to create artifacts. CT is thinking like, okay, I need containers to contain numbers. I can't just, computer needs containers or memories, if you will. So we have created 2 memory containers. One is sum, one is count. So we're going to say, you know what, we're going to follow the first way, which is counting. We're going to set up a counter, and counter start in 0 and then count all the way to 100. And each iteration in this sequence, we're going to do the same thing. Increase the counter by 1 and then count plus sum and give that back to the container. So if you're a normal human that does not have computer science training, this is basically not the natural way of thinking. This is how computer scientists thinks. And then you have to do a loop and you have to print. So within this short sequence, we have pattern recognitions, which means you have to recognize the patterns, which is 1 to 100, each distance by 1. You have to apply logic, and logical thinking is basically a little bit like, how do you set up your loop, and how within the loop, what is the logic of adding 1? So this is basically saying you keep adding 1 to the next one, and then in the same container, and after that, you print whatever in the container is. And we have algorithms, which is basically the sequence of initialization of your artifacts, and then start counting and then print out. Those are the sequence of algorithms. And we have abstraction and generalization. So it doesn't show very much here, but the abstraction is what you see is you only focus on, in one iteration, you only focus on what happened in that iteration, which is basically increase the counter and make sure that you add the next number. So basically we are in this step, 4 plus 6, that's basically an iteration, right? So that's a little bit of abstraction, but it goes way beyond that. If you're computer science, your entire worldview is different. And evaluation is basically, we do evaluate whether this is the best algorithm in terms of computational complexity and whether it gives you the correct result, or whether it's the fast way to get you the result, or take the least amount of memory space to generate the result. So those are something like normal people don't consider. With math major, all we need to do is to get the correct answer. With computational thinking, you do have to think, is this the most effective way to get the answer? And with automation, is the whole thing is basically with the goal of a computer can carry this sequence without human intervention, so which is a little bit different. Now, basically the argument is same as reading a math. Everybody should know this, and then in order to survive the next generation of whatever is coming at us. So researchers are fanatically studying across K-12 in every level, even pre-K, on how do we infuse this computational thinking into their curriculums. And then I've shared, and this is where the paper kicks in, where we have definitions for this one is different ways to infuse the CT thinking into the current practice and curricula. And there are ways for CT in math and science. So CT thinking is really not a subject by itself. It is merely a tool or a concept that you apply in teaching other subjects to solve the problems, like a computer scientist. Now, this is the paper that I would argue that people should read, is Denning's kind of point out the limitations of, one, not only the definition is vague, And because we have a vague definition, we wanted to say CT concept applies everywhere for everybody. That's why CT have to have a vague definition. But then he questioned, like, how do we assess it, right? What is CT thinking? How do you assess it? And also the final question, I kind of agree, is it really good for everyone? This is a universal claim that everyone have to do this, right? So that's, I'll leave that for you to kind of see if you do. I'd like to probably show of hand, how many people actually think like your or understand CT thinking? I mean, just so that I get I know Dr. Bonk definitely have it. Christian, and then the rest. You see, that's what I have in mind is, I mean, this universal claim is where I kind of disagree with CT thinking. Everything else is good, but the universal claim is where it gets me, is I can't think why everybody has to do this. And then
I'm gonna
sure, go ahead.
ask for a final. You have a final slide or
So
comment?
that was it. That's the punchline, which is the definition. Yeah.
Christian, do you have a comment on this? A quick comment for us.
So two comments. First is it really seems like the future of CT is looking to where and if it does apply in every realm. So just what you were talking about, is it universal? And I think in doing that, we figure out and we can set on ways of teaching computers how to think like humans. But also we can communicate better with computers as partners, because as computers use more and more complex algorithms, we'll need to be able to understand what it is that their output is. And not always will they be able to explain that to us if we don't think a little bit more like them. Algorithms and artificial intelligence. So you correct me if I'm wrong in any of that. But the other thing is interesting conversation about how computational thinking is the software to information processing theory of learning. So information processing theory is a little bit more like the hardware and how the hardware functions. And he talks about in our discussion thread how computational thinking is a software program essentially that runs on that hardware. So I thought that those were two really cool, interesting aspects about the week.
A very important week, and I want to thank and Christian for that week. It's a week I should have had in this class long ago. Many of these weeks are weeks I should have had in this class. Rebecca's, until every one of you had something interesting, and I said, when I saw the videos Charity had, I said, well, we got to do something more than just discuss them in Canvas, you know. So each of you has provided us with supplemental materials that I have extended this course in unique ways, and to have Kim involve us in the game and try it out, and to have Belle lead us into the future. I mean, each of you have done something that we wouldn't have been here had you not participated in the creation of the alternative syllabus. So I want to thank you for doing that for us. I might use it again in 2 years when I teach, if I teach this course again in 2 years, or if I teach it in 3 years from now. I'm not sure what they will let me do. I want to point out on computational thinking, the first article is by Roy D.P. from Stanford. I read him in grad school in his work on Logo at Bank Street College in New York. He's a brilliant guy. If you want to read any article for the week, I mean, Ga mentioned a different article, but article 1 on just computational thinking is a competency whose time has come. And Roy D.P. in fact endorsed my World is Open book. So I know Roy fairly well. I've been following his work for a long time. And if you get a chance to see him at a conference as a keynote, he's a very deep thinker, especially in the science areas. And it's a neo-Vygotskian kinds of learning, looking at, you know, the social cultural views on technology and education. So I again want to thank you for celebrating this week, this day. It was 7/31 or bust, as my son got me the shirt for Christmas, so I had a chance to wear this. So today, 2 years ago, I started running after we did the first Silver Lining for Learning podcast. The Silver Lining for Learning started 2 years ago, exactly today. My running started exactly 2 years ago today. It is the first day of spring. There's a lot of magical moments to this day. It's the nicest day in Bloomington we've had in a long time. It's just a beautiful night now. And so thanks for enjoying this special day with me. It's not every day I can have class after running 731 days in a row. I think it'll be the only time in my life where I'll run 731 days. I'm going to keep going as long as my feet let me. I'm not sure how long they will let me. My left foot is aching. I'm seeing the physical therapist tomorrow morning. I've got an ankle something problem. They've been working on it for a few weeks, and it's not really getting much better. They help my knees. They're not helping my ankles, so we'll see. But if I had to choose, I'd like to get to 1,000. I don't think I'll get to 1,000. So 750 is the next goal, then 777, and then 800. And then I don't know. I don't think I'll make it much beyond actually where I'm at. I'll be surprised.
Maybe you can run in water.
I've been running outside every day, sometimes with 8 layers of clothes, but I've not run inside a single day during the pandemic. I have 2 feet of snow, snowbanks, mud, pouring rain, you know, blizzards, you know, lightning strikes, you name it, late at night, sometimes at midnight, so it counts for the next day. It all sorts, it's weird, but yeah. I like swimming, but I'm gonna keep running for now. I'm swimming. I swam a mile a day when I dissertated to reduce the stress. So again, I will stop the recording here, but again, thank everyone for all their help. It is now